गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। Today we're heading into the Casa and Gunner Shot webinar on China-Pak collusion and India's options. I have with me a very illustrious panel who's going to weigh in all these issues. As you can see on the screen, clockwise, I have General Gautam Murthy, General Narsimhan, Ambassador Ashok Kanta, General Bhatia, and Mrs. Antara Goshal Singh. Now, they don't need introduction because they are absolutely great scholars and watchers of China. And they've played very important roles, representing government of India. They're still publishing and they're very sought after. We all know that we've just finished coming out of Op Sindoor and that, there are a lot of issues involved. And our deputy chief recently has come out and said, look, when we were handling Pakistan, China was fully keyed on to it. They were treating this whole story as a live testing ground, and they were giving live feeds also. I mean, that was just the icing on the cake. We all knew right from beginning that China was supporting Pakistan through and through Op Sindoor. There is no doubt now that this collusion has gone to a higher level. Just yesterday, the PLA Chief of Air Staff was with the Pakistan Air Force chief, right? And what they discuss, we don't know. Definitely, we generally know what they should be discussing about not only exchange of training, operational issues, and new aircraft, and armament and all that. So you see, things are happening, not only incrementally but at great pace. So, what are our options is the big question. And that is what we're going to weigh in on. And without wasting much time, I'm first going to invite General Gautam Murthy. Sir, your views on this whole story as to where China-Pak collusion is going and what are India's options. All yours, sir.
Thank you, General Shankar. Good evening to you and to my respected fellow panelists. Good evening to your viewers. This is CASA's 81st webinar. And on 9th April last year, 2024, CASA held its 50th webinar. And what was the subject? China-Pak collusion. In that webinar, what clearly emerged was that Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism, and support from China has only emboldened Pakistan, and specifically the Pakistan army. For the deep state, the policy of terror and talks has been a strategy against India. Also, Pakistan and China have managed to create an environment of insecurity for us. China's crucial support
Sir, 1 minute.
in
I'd request everyone to mute your mics because there's a resounding thing coming, right?
So China's crucial support to Islamabad in the conventional domain, nuclear domain, ballistic missile program, it's just continuing unabated. And in that webinar, what we stated is that while the two front threat has been acknowledged by our Indian military commanders, by our diplomats, by scholars, commentators, the country's political leadership has publicly stayed generally silent on the matter, other than a few remarks here and there. It is time, perhaps, I feel that India publicly raised its concerns with China. The main interest that China has in Pakistan is firstly to preserve Pakistan as a viable military competitor to India, using it not only in the military domain but also using it to contest India's rise to power in its own right. It obviously wants to use Pakistan as an overland trade and energy corridor, with CPEC being the flagship of China's Belt and Road Initiative that we've discussed at great length with General Shankar, and also use Pakistan's cooperation in trying to sever the links between Uyghur separatists in Western China and Islamists in Pakistan. Their recent recognition of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan is a pointer in that direction. Pakistan has been a staunch supporter for China in the OIC, fending off any anti-China sentiments, both with reference to Chinese atrocities in Xinjiang, and both countries, as we know, support each other in the UN. In sum, Pakistan is at best a tool in the Chinese grand strategy of becoming a world superpower by 2050. By creating dependence in perpetuity on China by way of land, unpayable loans, infrastructure development, industries, weaponry, space, China is totally subservient and beholden. I mean, Pakistan is totally subservient and beholden to China. Pakistan today, we can say, is a vassal state of China. Uh, Finally, for this session, since we're keeping it short, I'll have more to say a little later. I will just quote the former ambassador of Pakistan to the US, Mr. Hussein Haqqani, who very vividly described the relationship. He says, for China, Pakistan is a low cost secondary deterrent to India. For Pakistan, China is a high value guarantor of security against India. And more on this later. This is my opening remarks. Back to you, General Shankar. You're muted, Shankar. Shankar.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir. The last statement which you made about what Hussein Haqqani said is very important. For China, Pakistan is a low-cost investment to catch war against India. And for Pakistan, China is a high-value guarantor, right? And that has come true in Op Sindoor, right? Be that as it may, I'd now request General Narasimhan, please weigh in with your views on this topic.
Uh, Thank you very much, Shankar, and thank you very much, General Moti, to get me onto this panel. It's always a pleasure to be amongst senior colleagues who have been in service with us earlier and guiding us. I'm going to give 4 points on the present issue of China-Pakistan collusion, and also try and cover as to what India should do in a matter of 5 minutes. So the first 4 points are: first is what happened as a collusion in Op Sindoor is not a surprise. We have been saying this all along, that China will support Pakistan in case of an India-Pakistan conflict, and that support will come in these exact forms as what the Deputy Chief has mentioned a couple of days ago. Other than that, in fact, Ambassador Khan's article clearly mentions that they don't move physically much, but these are the things that they will help Pakistan with, and it is a given. Second, there are limitations to this cooperation. Please also understand the Chinese also function under a lot of constraints. It is not that it is a given that China can do everything and anything and get away with it. There are limitations to that. And so, if at all, if we can create a situation where China's reputation or China's interests are involved, then China will drop Pakistan like a hot potato. So that is something we need to keep in mind. Third, China-Pakistan cooperation is a given, even in future. And it will be in terms of equipment, in terms of ISR capabilities, in terms of targeting, in terms of political support, in terms of diplomatic support. Everything is a guaranteed one. For some time now, I have been saying that the way Pakistan needs China, China also needs Pakistan. It is a mutual dependency that is developing over a period of time. And so, this aspect that we need to keep in mind. In fact, we have been on many track 1.5, track 2 after we left our service, and the Chinese have been very clearly indicating this to us, that they will help out Pakistan come what may. So that is again a given. The fourth point is, China has now recently been trying to create a group in South Asia. If you take your mind back during COVID, Wang Yi went to Sri Lanka and talked about a forum for island nations in the Indian Ocean region. And then they also created 2 meetings of, they call it Asian Quad, which comprised of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nepal initially, and then included Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. So they have been trying to create this grouping as an alternate to the SARC countries. So SARC is not functional, as we all aware. They have been at it for a very long time, and the recent China, Pakistan, Bangladesh meeting that took place, even though Bangladesh has denied that it was against to create a group like this, but this is something that Chinese will be at it all the time, and that is something we need to be on the watch. Having said all this, what should India do if this is the situation in which we find ourselves in? what do we then do? First is the gap between us and China, be it economy, be it in terms of equipment, be it in terms of technology. It is not going to reduce in the midterm, in the medium term at least. It will probably continue to increase. If that is the case, then what do we do to counter this? One is external balancing, which India has been doing quite a bit now in the recent times. External balancing is extremely important. I'm sure that both the military diplomacy as well as the diplomacy per se, which is the MEA, both of them will continue to do that thing. That is something which is a given. That is where our strength will come in terms of holding China back or China-Pakistan back. The second thing, militarily, we need to increase our deterrence. To do the deterrence part, we don't have to actually have 100 to 100% to 100% equipment like China. We may be having even less equipment than them. However, we need to deploy them correctly in places and then ensure that the deterrence takes place. If it is forward deployment is required, let's do it. So this is something I think we need to look at it. And this I've been saying, we should not compete with them weapon to weapon. That will be detrimental to us. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. The second thing is develop asymmetric warfare capabilities in terms of space, cyber, electronic warfare, missiles, conventional missiles, and strategic forces. This is something which we can do. Within our capability, we have been doing it. We can improve this. And this is something that I think we should work on. I have also been suggesting that the Indian space program should be integrated with the requirements of the armed forces, like the Chinese have been doing. China's space program has been with the PLA right from the word go, and even now the aerospace force is controlling the entire space program. So this is something we need to do. We need to integrate the space requirements of Indian armed forces with the ISRO's requirement and then do the needful. The third thing is we need to review the border management policies in terms of, if you look at how many agencies are actually doing the border management, there are 7-8 agencies that will get involved. So can we streamline this to some extent to say that to make the border management more effective? That is something that I think we need to be doing this. And last is we need to create a credible strategic deterrence. That is in terms of strategic capability, in terms of the nuclear capabilities. That is something that we need to continue to work on. These are the few points I had. I'll stop here and then we'll open up for the discussion subsequently.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Very interesting issues. One, which is you reiterated that China-Pakistan collusion against India is a given under all conditions. And your points regarding, external balancing, military deterrence, asymmetric capability, space program integration, review of the border management policy, and building up a credible strategic deterrence are also, I think, very valid and cogent, and we'll take it up in the next session. With this, I'd request Ambassador Ashok Kanta, sir, over to you and your views, please, initial views. You're muted, sir, at this point. So you're muted. Unmute yourself.
Yeah.
You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you, General Shankar, for inviting me to participate with old colleagues and friends. Like General Narasimhan, I also make 4 points. First point is basically reiterating that China-Pakistan strategic nexus is one of the most durable strategic relationships in the world, spanning over 6 decades, and very, counterintuitively, ebb and flow in Pakistan's relations with USA do not quite affect this relationship. So both USA and China have shown a great degree of resilience in giving space to each other in Pakistan. That's one. Second point I would like to make is that during past decade, the relationship, especially strategic dimensions, have been broad-based and acquired new dimensions. One, for the first time, China started investing with CPEC in economic development and stability of Pakistan, something which had not happened earlier. And despite all problems with CPEC, this will continue. This is flagship project of Xi Jinping, so this will continue. Second, geopolitical rationale relationship has developed beyond India-centric objectives. I think this is something we tend to ignore. Of course, shared antipathy towards India, desire to keep India off balance is a strategic clue, bringing China and Pakistan together. But they hold to other areas where they have utility for each other. I'll not go into detail, but we can discuss it later. Third, military cooperation has become more sophisticated, both by way of provision of defense hardware, co-production defense hardware, joint exercises. For instance, recent years, 80% of Pakistan's armed procurement has been from China, and we saw during Op Sindoor, uh, kind of interoperability which has developed and which has been homed at least since 2011, the Shine series of exercise started. Fourth, nuclear cooperation has continued. Earlier, of course, it was very important when China provided all kind of support, covert and overt, to Pakistan. But even now, they are helping Pakistan acquire sea leg of nuclear triad. Through Babar 3, sea launched cruise missile and Hangar class submarines. And also, civilian nuclear cooperation has continued. And finally, there's expanded presence in POK, which has happened. Third point I would like to make, and here it's really, sort of building on what was said earlier. Op Sindoor marks a new stage in development of China-Pakistan nexus. If you compare Op Sindoor with what happened in 65, 71, and 99, for the first time we had battlefield collusion between China and Pakistan. And we are in fact moving towards a situation where instead of two-front war, it will be an extended theater with Pakistan, with China being an ever-present factor, at Deputy Chief Army Staff brought out. And this was visible in many different ways, not only in terms of deployment of advanced Chinese origin systems, but the way China helped integrate, you know, J-10C fighters, PL-15 beyond visual range missiles, HQ-9 air defense system, along with Area ISAP 2000 Swedish system, which was quite remarkable. Here, in fact, there was a very interesting podcast I was listening to yesterday, Economist podcast, Drum Tower, makes this point that for the first time, there is support by China to Pakistan in its skill chain. And they compare it with what happened in Ukraine, where UK and France provided equipment, but the USA did not back up with the requisite ISR support, so made the equipment less effective. But China, went the whole hog to provide support. So we have a new normal in terms of relations between China and Pakistan as we carve out larger space for conventional operations against Pakistan. China and Pakistan will also double down on creating new normal in their battlefield coordination. And already Pakistan has talked about acquiring fifth generation J-35 stealth fighters, KJ-500 AWACS, and HQ-19 ballistic missile defense system from China. So increasingly, China will try to plug the loopholes in Pakistan's defense establishment. Now, here, next point I would like to make, fourth point, is what should be India's response. Diplomatically, we have in the past been rather shy of linking China-Pakistan nexus with process of normalization or progression of India-China relations. I think we cannot maintain that. Given the changed nature of battlefield collusion between China and Pakistan, I think we have to signal to China suitably that there'll be a cost in terms of program movement towards normalization relations between India and China if they go down this road. Not that they will change their posture, but I think this message needs to be conveyed. Second point is that we'll have to develop asymmetric pressure points. And these pressure points can be South China Sea, where we have changed our policy quite a bit. In fact, in recent years, it can be POK, where Chinese companies operating there can be prevented from from operating Indian market. We have already fine-tuned our Tibet policy since 2009. We have not reiterated formulation of one China policy. Third, our response to Pakistan, I think we have to be careful. Any knee-jerk response by way of military action to Pakistan's provocation will be counterproductive, because this will really create a trap for us. In fact, China and Pakistan will not be averse to that. So while that option is there, we have to develop an alternative menu of options, like abrogation of Indus Water Treaty, or doing things we need not talk about, but they can be done quite effectively. Fourth, and most important, is domestic capability building. General Narasimhan has already talked about it. I think need for asymmetric deterrence. So I'll not, but this is absolutely critical. We may talk about external balancing, but given kind of uncertainty there is about US policy in second Trump administration, can we really depend on USA for external balancing of China? Frankly, I don't know what is Trump's China policy today beyond trade and tariff. So increasingly, I think we'll have to sort of focus on our own, creating asymmetric deterrence, defense modernization, and also economic de-risking. Nirbhar Bharat, infrastructure development, border management policy, General Narasimhan talked about, and credible strategic deterrence. I think this is something which is ignored. We should not lose sight of the fact that there is a breakout in China's nuclear arsenal, and their nuclear doctrine is also changing quite significantly. We have to take that on board. Otherwise, the equilibrium which has existed in nuclear field between India and Pakistan might come under stress. So these are some of the points I wanted to make. We can have more discussions later.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. I think you made some very, very valid points and very interesting points. The most interesting point is that, look, we tend to forget that the durability of this relationship between China and Pakistan, it is not only durable, it is quite elastic, and it snaps back when needed for both of them. At that point of time, they're always together. That's something very important. And the issue which you made, which we need to really think hard, is that their geopolitical objectives are beyond India. And Pakistan is part of the game to piggyback on China to get a greater heft in the North Arabian Sea and in the Gulf areas and things like that. How successful it will be is a point. But generally, Pakistan enables China to get two ocean access. And that is virtually the precursor to being a superpower in terms of what Kaplan had said. But I leave it at that at this point. We could discuss it some other day. Right. And a whole range of issues which you have said that what India can do. Generally, what General Narasimhan and what Ambassador Kanta has put across is quite cogent. If you put these, I'm sure the other two speakers also will speak on the same lines. But I think a very important point, 2 points which have come out is India has to be more asymmetric in its attitude. We've been so far symmetric. We should be asymmetric. And second, we should rethink our nuclear doctrine. I think these are two very important rethinks which we have to do. With this, I'd request Mrs. Antara Gosal Singh. Madam, you've been studying China so far, and I value your way you study China, which is quite different from many of us. Your views on how this China-Pak collusion is going on, and what are India's options? All yours.
Thank you, sir, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me for this panel discussion. I'm really honored to be a part of this eminent panel today. So, of course, the recent statement by our Deputy Chief of Army Staff on China's role in during Operation Sindoor, it has brought back the China question. Back in the limelight. I agree that this is a great cause of concern for India. And as a countermeasure, what I would like to propose is that I think we have not explored as much is how the China, Pakistan, and US trilateral dynamic is playing out. When I look into Chinese discussions, and I see that other than India, the other country which has been most concerned about Pakistan's Field Marshal Munir's meeting with President Trump, and also, Pakistan going a step forward and nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize, has been actually China. China has been really upset about this development. Many in China have been calling Pakistan's opportunistic attitude as a stab in China's back. Because first, President Trump is one personality who is considered like a real villain in China, who dared to rock the boat of China-US relationship ever since he has been in power. Various reports in Chinese media highlight how, they lament that how China has spent so much money in Pakistan to build the military corridor, the Gwadar port. They have provided military equipment, diplomatic assistance in recent, even in during the recent India-Pakistan conflict. But Pakistan did something really very embarrassing for China by nominating Mr. Trump for Nobel Prize. One of the core allegations or the common allegations have been that Pakistan took all sorts of military support from China and didn't give due credit to China, but showered all the praises to the U.S. president. And secondly, they say that Pakistan's action undermined China's mediation effort or China's role as a peacemaker in the region, particularly in the Middle East region. For example, Pakistan's choice to stand or to lean towards the United States during the recent Iran crisis, it really put China in a very embarrassing situation. If it had, continued to support Iran, it would have, gone into a direct collision with the United States. And by choosing to, stay out of it, China thinks that it has lost its space to a great extent. And in any case, even during the India-Pakistan conflict, China really worked overtime to mend ties between Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. They were really concerned that the Iranian foreign minister was visiting India when the conflict was going on with Pakistan, and also certain diplomatic overtures by the Afghanistan from the Afghanistan side also caused concern within China, and that's why they took a lot of pain in bringing these countries together. But Pakistan's stance again, created complexity for Chinese measures, and many called Pakistan's betrayal as a wake-up call for China that interest is before friendship. So I will end here just with a simple question that for all the panelists, in fact, do you think there is a scope where we can use this complex dynamic between China, Pakistan, and the U.S. to our interests in conveying our message to China that Pakistan is not really as trustworthy as it thinks, and by supporting Pakistan as much, it jeopardized the budding, positivity that was there in India-China relations. So I'll end there. And I'd be happy to know your comments on this. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot, madam. Yeah, I think you brought out a very interesting aspect of China-Pak US dynamics and how they put some strain between Pakistan and China. Uh, but my own view is like the Pakistan-China relationship is quite elastic. It snap back to normal any day. And Pakistan is a past master at it. Pakistan, I mean, to put it in context, Asim Munir is called the deceiver. And this tag of deceiver is not new. He's had this tag of deceiver for a long time. So if you see, his whole story is deceiving everyone. So that's a different thing we'll see. But the interesting thing which you brought out is that there is scope for us to do something about this dynamic, which is a little unstable. But do we have the tools for it? And if we have to do, what are the tools we have to develop? That's a $1 million question. We'll see it in the next round. So with this, sir, General Bhatia, sir, your views on this whole show.
Jai Hind, and thank you very much. Always great to be on a panel with such esteemed China experts, the leading experts on China, basically. And thank you, Casa. Thank you, Ganesh Shot. Giving 4 points each reminded me of Gang of Four, 1976, when China was very famous for Gang of Four. So I'll also stick to about 4 points only. Firstly, I don't know why we are surprised by collusivity between China and Pakistan. We should have expected that. We should have accepted it, and we should have planned for it. And I will go one step further. Why we call it collusivity? It is Pakistan-China collaboration. There's a difference between collaboration and collusivity. And why I'm saying that is important to understand that. And I will just read out a very basic difference. Collaboration is constructive, mutually beneficial, process where individuals, oblique teams work together towards a common goal, often with communication and shared responsibility. Collusion, on the other hand, involves secret or unethical cooperation, typically with the intention to deceive or gain an unfair advantage, often violating rules or agreements. So I see it is more of a collaborative approach between China and Pakistan, and we had catered for it. We've been talking about it for ages, and I think on Ganesh Short we spoke about it, that let's shift from collusivity to collaborative. Because if you do not understand what China and Pakistan are going to do, they have not shared interest. If you look at that, national, till no, no, 99 was different totally. 71, 60 were different. Today, China is invested into Pakistan and they want, and this one covered earlier. However, having said that, we should also we're looking at options. So, what are the options with us? One, China respects strength, builds strengths. Raise costs for Pakistan, been covered earlier. China's got vulnerabilities. We should start looking at China's vulnerabilities. One of the vulnerabilities, China's three T's: Tibet, Taiwan, East Turkmenistan. Why should we not look at it? If there is asymmetry, fine. But every time, if China respects strength and we seem weak, we'll always be, we'll be paying the cost for China. Then we always get taken by surprise. I'm reminded of Bollywood movies where the hero gets beaten up first and then he goes and beats up everyone. Whether it was 2020 Galwan or whether it was Sindhu or it was Kargil or 62 for that matter. So I think we should build our own ISR capabilities and we should invest. There is asymmetry between China and India, and technology asymmetry is there. I think we have to get structure and systems. We cannot be talking about it. We have to invest into organizations and structures like DARPA, which are made for India. It is okay to, we get very enamored and thrilled that we got now empowered financial powers to buy emergency procurements. Why emergency? It takes time to identify, to induct, to absorb, and to exploit an equipment. You just give me a lottery examination today and say, okay, no, go ahead and destroy something or other. It doesn't work out that way. We're not optimizing. We have to optimize. There is asymmetry in a lot of technology, and we got to build technologies. Tomorrow, it's a technological war. We've seen it this time, how technology helped us, but we'll have to upgrade ourselves, right? My point is why we're reactive. We should be proactive. We talk of string of pearls. We also talk of string of diamonds. We should start investing into the neighborhood of China. China got about 26 neighbors, if I'm not mistaken, 14 land and another 12 maritime neighbors. So we got to start investing in them. So we'll have to look at the broader picture. And coming back to with China, the last point which I have is with China we need a 4D strategy. We've talked about it earlier on this platform, and that is defend the line of actual control to deter China. Because if you are weak on the line of actual control, China will always be there, and politically it may not be acceptable, and we'll always be on the back foot and react. Deny the sea lines of communication, because that's China's vulnerability, it's China's strategic vulnerability, it's China's strategic concerns, and we want to dominate the sea lanes of communication, especially the choke points. Depth diplomacy. I think we have on the panel Ambassador Kanta. We have to have diplomacy, bind to balance with with nations where the convergent forms of interest. If China has got also vulnerabilities, and we have to bind to balance. Well, I know U.S. Trump transactional and everything is fine, but we'll have to look at Quad is on ventilator. I'm not too sure, but yes, there are problems with Quad. And the last, of course, deny space in the neighborhood. Our neighborhood first policy is just not taking off. It's in shambles, if I may say so. And that is where the concerns are. So we'll have to look at it. And the last bit that I would like to say is our China policy should be reviewed. But when you review the China policy, it should not be anti-China. It should be pro-India. Please understand that the difference between anti-China and we keep bashing China, especially in the media and the narratives and all. Never underestimate your adversary. I will not say enemy. Never underestimate your adversary, and especially when there is a collaboration and there's a congress of interest and convergence of interest between China and Pakistan. I'll end out there. Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot, sir. As usual, very erudite way you put it. We have to now start looking at China-Pakistan collaboration rather than collusion. You just reminded us of all that. And the importance of treaties, which we've discussed, Tibet, Taiwan, and Turkmenistan. We have to invest more in these. And then the 4D strategy, about which we have spoken. And I suppose we need to have another discussion on these very issues of 3T and 4D. One of these on a one-to-one. We'll do that sometime next week. Right. Now that we've got a good idea, China-Pakistan collusion is here to stay. The dynamic with USA and the instability which it induces is here to stay. Right. And we have to do something, whatever we have to do. I have a few questions, and then I'll take these questions from what you all of you have come out with. Okay. The first thing is, yeah, I'd like to ask General Narasimhan, what do you think we have, what are the leverages we have with China? What do you think we have what are the vulnerabilities they have? What are the limitations? Because you spoke of limitations which China has. Whether it's limitations, vulnerabilities, and what are the leverages we can build up, if you could throw some light on it. And, especially in the China-Pak nexus, the way you're looking at it and how it is. Your views. You're muted. Narsi, you're muted.
I'm unmuted now. Right.
Yeah, you're
Can I
unmuted.
also add a couple of points from what the discussions came up?
Please. And all of you could add a few points to whatever it is, and there's no embargo on that.
First point about Pakistan's acquisition from China. J-35, there have been doubts thrown on by their own defense department, Pakistan's defense department, that they're not going to procure J-35. So there are still issues pending, but however, equipment will come from China. 80% of Pakistan's equipment is there, but the futuristic kind of procurements, whether China would like to give it to Pakistan, is something that we need to have a little bit of caution on it. The second is the external balance. When I mentioned, it is not only restricted to US. Please understand there are other countries which have got leverages on China, and those are the countries I think with whom we need to have a good amount of balancing to be done with them. The third is on the nuclear thing. I didn't say that nuclear doctrine needs to be reviewed. This nuclear doctrine, because of its ambiguity, is giving us a lot of lot of positive effect on that particular policy. I don't think we should do the doctrine, but we need to do the capability. Strategic deterrence capability is something that we need to build. China, Pakistan, US, the question which Antara asked, I was recently in US. I met all the think tanks and I also some members of the State Department. They are all at their wits' end to describe Mr. Trump's actions. We need to look at this. I'm not joking. It's a fact.
No, I
And
agree with you.
it is a fact. And the thing is that what the administration is looking at India and others is probably a little different from what Mr. Trump is looking at. So this will play out at some point in time. Notwithstanding that, how do we do this to our own interest? Just now I was reading, President Trump has said he is going to impose 500% tariff on us in case we import oil from Russia. Okay, so these are all things will keep going up and down. But please don't forget the permanent interest that US has got. The US's permanent interest lies with us more than anybody else in this region, and that is what will play to our advantage. Please also look at the recent Quad meeting, the readout that came out subsequently. Lastly, about this Tibet, Taiwan, and ETIM, I mean Turkmenistan issue, East Turkmenistan issue. We need to approach this with caution. I know that these are leverages that we can have, and in the recent past, I am sure many of us would have noticed the way His Holiness Dalai Lama's birthday was celebrated, people participated, the statements that are coming out. Off and on, we have been doing this, but with caution. I think we need to be cautious about this and not go gung-ho on it. That is another thing that we need to be looking at. The other thing about the leverages and the vulnerabilities that you talked about, as far as what we have. One of the biggest leverages we have is the ideology with which Chinese are very uncomfortable with. If we promote a successful democracy that is acting against the interests of the Chinese political system, that is one of the major leverages that we have, and we that is being discussed in, Antara will bear me out, this is being discussed in many forums within China, in the media, etc. That is one of the leverages that we have. The second leverage that we have is a relationship of external balances, which I mentioned to you. I'm sure Mr. Kant also will bear me out on this. In all the meetings that we have, track 1.5, track 2 meeting we have, the first thing they tell us is don't go close to US. That is a leverage you still have. That is something I think we need to keep in mind. The third leverage that we have is the technological capability that we have. We may not have realized the potential of that capability, but the technological capability that we have, they are very well aware of. Even though they are leaders in many of the technologies, they very well know that 80% of the chip design gets done in India. So there are leverages on technology that we can have, which we can leverage. Coming on to vulnerabilities, there are a number of vulnerabilities which you have noticed with China. I mean, I got a full presentation on it. Sometime we can discuss it at some point in time. The problem comes in leveraging those vulnerabilities. That is where you will find a lot of difficulties that come up. We know what the vulnerabilities are, but then you will not be able to leverage them in a manner that you would like to. That is point number one. Point number two, our vulnerabilities. If you look at Chinese writings, China's view of India, if you look at it, in many subjects, one is defense. They feel that we are a weaker defense capability, but having seen the way our armed forces fight on the borders, they have a very great amount of respect for the Indian armed forces. That is one thing that we have. They are actually looking at the political system which they consider to be weak in India, because it gives a lot of these arguments come up with any decision that the government takes, and that they are not very, they are happy with it. We are not happy with it in a manner. So that is the second on the political issue. On the third issue of development that is taking place within India, they feel that we are a weaker nation economically, and the gap between China and India is large, and India will not be able to bridge that gap. They are very clear about it. Even we are clear about it, because the gap is too large in any case. So there are many vulnerabilities like this that they look at us, and they also look at the chaotic kind of caste system that we play around with, the political system that we play around with in the states. They do criticize them in various media outlets that they have. So there are leverages, there are vulnerabilities. On the leverages, exploitation of those leverages is the most difficult thing that we find, and that is something that we have to deal with. Thank you.
But thanks a lot for all what you said. I think very important points. Uh, I'll now ask a question to Ambassador Kanta. So, we all talk of great gaps between India and China economically. I'll not talk of militarily because militarily, notwithstanding what everyone has said, I have a completely different view on it. I have a completely contra view on this. Let me put it. I don't think China is ahead of us militarily. And that is why they're worried. And I can prove it, but that's a different story, right? It is just that we don't realize our own strengths. But coming to the economics, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that India has the fastest growing economy, which is at this point of time. And we're going to grow from here on. Equally, the Chinese economy is contracting. They might show 5%, 6% GDP growth every year, but the fact is it is deflating and it is growing down. And going ahead, it will not improve for the simple reason, a very fundamental reason, that their population is decreasing. See, everything depends on your population ultimately. In this kind of a scenario, do you see value in the way we have to refocus on China? Because I feel the gap is decreasing and it's decreasing quite fast. Your views on this, sir?
Well, I'll not comment on military aspect,
Yeah,
though.
that's fine.
Yeah. But though personally, I feel that there also gap is actually expanding quite rapidly. You know, uh, just to give you example of Navy, for instance, size of Navy, what they're adding every year, sophistication of the defense systems. But we can discuss that separately. Coming to economy, uh, I don't think gap is contracting, and it's not likely to contract anytime soon. For simple reason that China has $19 trillion economy at present. Even if they're growing at the rate of, they're not contracting. It may not be 5%, maybe 2%, 3%. Incremental growth will be much more if $4 trillion economy grows at 6%. So gap is increasing. What really worries me that new drivers of growth that China has devised, we have not been able to leverage them at all. Xi Jinping, just to give you an example, on innovation, they have placed a lot of priority, amount of money they are putting in innovation. As a result, when it comes to high tech manufacturing, they are actually number one in the world. The gap with the rest of the world is becoming larger and larger. We are nowhere there, unfortunately. I'll just give you this number. Uh, our investment in R&D as percent of GDP has decreased from 0.8% in about 15 years ago to 0.64% today. In the same period, China's percentage of GDP devoted to R&D has gone up to 2.7%, next only to USA. So these are drivers of growth. Future growth will come for that. And let's not, yes, I mean, shrinking population will be a challenge for China, no doubt about it. But it's a new drivers of growth are emerging where you can compensate for shrinking population through robotics. 50% all robots are deployed in China today. So my own assessment is that we shouldn't make the mistake of coming to conclusion that China is peaking, let alone contracting. In fact, they still have fair amount of growth momentum left. And when it comes to an adversary, we should give them benefit of doubt. Uh,
All
so
right.
asymmetry, military, economic, technological, geopolitical will be a major problem for us. I'll just make two more points which had
Yeah, please, sir.
come later. One, Antara's point. Uh, I'm not too. I will not pay too much attention to what Chinese media is saying on, betrayal by Pakistan. You know, I've seen this relationship. It's a very durable relationship, Antara. These comments are immaterial. They go by hard-headed assessment. To some extent, in fact, they're very comfortable with U.S. involvement with Pakistan. Pakistan has got 28 IMF packages became possible because of USA. China doesn't want to take on that responsibility. Just to give you an example, so you know, I don't think there is such a contradiction in in Pakistan's relations with USA on one side and China on one side. Chinese may be upset, but they will lump it because the strategic basic relationship is very strong. Secondly, this point about are leveraging three T's. I'll agree with General Narasimhan. Uh, yes, we have created greater ambiguity about our policy, but in real terms, using those T's as leverage, frankly, we don't have much wherewithal for that. And likewise, no, we are struggling with our activist policy at this point of time. We are struggling with the neighborhood policy. Our commerce minister has just described ASEAN as B team of China. Uh, Things are not moving well. So I think there is need for very serious assessment of how we are dealing with China's neighborhood and our own neighborhood.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. Thanks for your views. Right, you have given a viewpoint which is okay. I mean, I will put it. Let me have. I mean, unless we have a point of view which is different nature, there's no debate on the whole story, right? But I think not only us, the whole world is making a mistake as far as their population is going, because robots don't make a good population. An economy doesn't convert into power if it doesn't, the way it is. And there are other issues, we can discuss it. In my own opinion, I think we are overestimating China and we are underestimating ourselves, but that's a larger thing. Yeah, Antra, your views on this whole thing and your views on how do you see relative to China where we are?
Sir, we spoke about leveraging three T's. I will add one B to it. That is the Balochistan issue. I've written about it during Operation Sindoor. Chinese strategic circles were buzzing with what is happening in Balochistan and the security of the CPEC. Um, the argument was that CPEC is facing an unprecedented two-front challenge, that is the tension between India and Pakistan, and the one after another big terrorist attacks happening in Balochistan on the other hand. And in some of the terrorist attacks, some key routes were cut off, and there were some deep impacts on the Gwadar port. There were also news about some leaders declaring independence, which of course didn't get much coverage in international media. But if you look at the Chinese media, they were really very concerned about it. And what I saw was that there was a lot of domestic resentment about the security cost of CPEC going up by leaps and bounds because of um, the security situation in Pakistan. And various reports, highlighted how Chinese companies are now forced to invest huge amounts in hiring security personnel, purchasing security equipment, building protection facilities, and so on and so forth. So that was one thing that I could notice, that there was a lot of resentment regarding that. And the other important point I noticed was that there was this dilemma over how to go about the Balochistan issue. So, if they support the Pakistani government with strong military suppression of the rebels, that kind of stokes a very strong anti-China sentiment among the locals. But on the other hand, if China tries to engage them one on one, then it somehow it upsets the Pakistani government because it undermines its authority on the issue. So clearly, China faces an important dilemma on the Balochistan issue, and it is very concerned how it is going to. If there is going to be a great power competition in that region, we mentioned about how. Pakistan-China relation is very stable. But the competition, the great power competition that is playing in and where Pakistan stands or how it is being pulled in different directions, that is something important I think we should keep a tab on. Because U.S. presence, greater U.S. presence in, say, in Pakistan, in these region, in around CPEC, can complicate things between China and Pakistan. So I think that is one space we should not just dismiss that it's not possible. Maybe we can take a more how do you say? We should watch out, more carefully. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, a very important point which you brought out about Balochistan. I remember writing that article. I think it's something which we need to really rethink because it's just not, Tibet, Taiwan, and Turkmenistan. I think we have to start thinking of Balochistan more seriously than we are doing, which is there because it affects both. It affects Pakistan and China together. Uh, so, General Bhatia, sir, I have a fundamental question to you. Do we tackle all, Pakistan separately, China separately, or together? Is there a case for us to say, okay, we'll hold one front and sort out the other, and vice versa? Is there an approach to do that, or we take on both of them, with whatever we have to do, or we are forced to do that in a reactive manner?
Firstly about Balochistan, I think as a responsible nation, we don't support it anywhere in the world. Period. Right. Treaties is slightly different. There's some moral support sort of a thing in a very measured manner. But as a responsible nation, we do not support terror anywhere in the world. That's my take. Now, talking of military taking two together, many years ago, on 17th of July 2013, we got a sanction from the CCS to raise attrition forces. Right. It was to it was a raising of 93,270 men soldiers. Uh, of course, that time we didn't have, and spread over 8 years, 2013. I'm talking. And then everyone said, no, the sanction was given to the CCS, funds were not allocated. We raised the 17 core. Loosely we call it Mountain Strike Corps, but it's much more than Mountain Strike Corps. The point is that if you want a Viksit Bharat, you have to have a Surakshit Bharat, right? Without, you can't be Viksit without being Surakshit, and you can't be Surakshit without being Viksit. So you'll have to, go take both together. So today we have a two-front scenario. Another, I would say we have a three-front scenario. I'm talking of a China, Pakistan, Bangladesh axis. If we don't talk about it, we understand, they're competing at national level, fine. But then Surakshit Bharat needs funds. Today, our defense budget is less than 2% of the GDP. And we got security threats which are defined and definite, unlike, USA, which is capability based and all. We got defined threats. Let's face facts. We got China, we got Pakistan, now we got Bangladesh, and we got our internal security threats also. So if we do not invest, if we do not give, and whatever comes to our way, that's also not optimized. Let me be very honest with you. Whatever budgets are allocated, it's not even optimized. So we've got to optimize that to enhance our combat readiness, our operational preparedness, our operational readiness has to enhance. Period. So that is what I'm trying to say. We cannot say, I'll take on both together. Why should I take on both together? There is diplomacy. The nations will only look after their interests. If you look at the core national interests of China and the core national interests of Pakistan, they converge fine. But the convergence also happens to a certain extent. We've got to make sure that we do not reach that stage where we have to take both together. Because this is not so, it's not going to be so easy. So raise costs for Pakistan, build relative strength against China, deter China, and for that we need a lot of monies. We're talking infrastructure is coming up. It's little too little, too late. Ask Jan Narasimhan when we built the road to Dokala, and that was Supreme Court orders, and I'm talking on open forum today that you can't build in that environmental clearance is not there and all. And we decided to build it. And it came in handy in 2017 when Dolan happened. And they changed the name of Dolan to Doklam also. Right. So what I'm trying to say is that let us plan to make sure that we do not have to face the two-front war or two and a half or a three-front war at the same time simultaneously. So that is the challenge. And for that, you need capabilities, you need to enhance capacities, and you got to demonstrate that. That's what I talk about. China is a military power, it's a technological power, it's an economic power, it's a geopolitical power. You just can't, just say we'll take on China, we'll take on Pakistan. We have to understand our limitations. Right? And we got to invest in capabilities. We are talking infrastructure development. We know the infrastructure development. We still have the ILP, inner line permits. Why should I have inner line permit? Tell me. It's our territory. Any Indian citizen should be able to go out there. Then Narasimhan covered that. We need to integrate everything. It's our territory, basically. We got to say it loudly. So what I'm trying to say is we got to make sure that we do not come to that stage where we have to take on two fronts together.
Right. Thanks a lot, sir. I thought we covered a lot of ground today. I request General Murthy, sir, you could give your points of view out and then sum up the whole webinar. All yours, sir.
Thank you, General Shankar. Thank you, my fellow panelists. It's been marvelous listening to all points of view. So I'll quickly run through what we should do about this collaboration, collusion, this friendship, or whatever you call it. Firstly, as General Bhatia said, completely go with him. You have to strengthen your military preparedness. You have to strengthen your deterrence. You have to upgrade your AD systems, ISR capabilities. General Narasimhan mentioned. Completely agree. We must invest in our technology. Atmanirbhar Bharat. This is the time. And we saw how Atmanirbhar Bharat played out. Anyway, our media, of course, hypes things, but focus should be there. Drones, satellites, cyber capabilities. You have to reduce your vulnerabilities on foreign supplied systems. Then is focus on multi-domain operations. Develop doctrines for integrated multi-domain warfare to counter this cyberspace. We've also said regional deterrence is a must. You have to maintain an escalation dominance. Continue this high impact military responses to cross border terrorism. We have to signal that any escalation will be met with decisive action. And at the same time, what General Bhatia and General Narasimhan said, and you, General Shankar, we have to train and equip for a simultaneous threat from both Pakistan and China. They are doing joint exercises. We should be doing wargaming on for a two-front war. I'm sure our military thinkers are already thinking on those lines and would have carried out exercises. Something on strategic signaling, I would like to say that we must expose this collusion and collaboration internationally. We have to highlight how this is affecting us. We have to build up diplomatic pressure. We have to shape global opinion. Our strategic communication, I'm sorry to say, has not been up to the mark. We have to develop it. We have to develop a strategic partnerships. We have to deepen defense and intelligence cooperation with key partners. As General Narasimhan brought out, there is a divergence of views in the US from what the president says and what the establishment says. Well, it's got to be there. We have to deal with it. We have to develop our strength with France, Israel, and other Quad countries. Uh, General Bhatia mentioned about China's uh, borders, both maritime and land borders. These are the countries we need to influence. Also, let us not forget that we are the undisputed leader of the global south. I mean, that is a huge voice. It may be marginalized, but they're looking up to us for leadership. This is what we need to leverage. And on this account, we have to reach out to China's leadership, bring out our concerns, tell them what we consider is an unfriendly act. What about this whole kill chain that was established? Completely unfriendly. You have to bring it out to them. Let them defend themselves. Let them say, no, it was not what we did. I've read reports in the press about it, but on this, we should be highlighting our concerns. We must leverage trade and economics. We must continue to leverage the Indus Water Treaty to see that we're not disadvantaged. Let Pakistan go running to China. We have to leverage that. We have to work with neighboring countries. We have to limit this Chinese strategic so-called encirclement that they're trying. We have to promote regional stability. How is Pakistan saying that we are the only voice for regional stability in this region? Come on, they are the fountainhead of terrorism. The whole world knows it. Yet they are promoting themselves as the only regional stable force. So, to my mind, India must respond to this evolving dynamic, this nexus with a blend of military modernization. We have to be assertive diplomatically. We have to build our strategic partnerships. We have to tell the Chinese leadership again and again that what is acceptable, what is not acceptable to us. And we need a multi domain approach to our national security and one that anticipates this future collusion and collaboration and is prepared to counter it across all domains, across all theaters of conflict. Thank you, General Shankar. That is what I would like to say in conclusion.
Yeah, thanks a lot, sir. And I'd like to thank all participants, General Gautam Murthy, General Narsimhan, Ambassador Kanta, General Bhatia, and Mrs. Antara Ghoshal Singh for wonderful views. We have had a plethora of views, right? And I think there's one common consensus. This China-Pakistan collusion or collaboration, whichever way you define it, is there to stay. And if there's anything, it's going to become stronger. And that's the way things are going to happen, right? And the second thing is, in case we need to develop the way we want to develop and become a power of reckoning in future, we have to invest in our Suraksha. A Viksit Bharat needs to be Surakshit Bharat, which
Yes.
General Vinod Bhatia had mentioned. And I think between General Narsimhan and Ambassador Kanta, they've actually put out whole lot of issues which can be achieved. And from General Bhatia's very clear enunciation, which we've been discussing, we have to look at things differently, right? Unless you have a strong fist, you can't show the iron in a velvet glove also. You need to have a strong fist and that velvet glove, and that's where we have to go further. And we have a lot of options. We are not bereft of options. We have plenty of options. I'd like to thank all of you once again. Thanks a lot for joining us in this webinar, and you made us all that much more, more knowledgeable about how to deal with China-Pakistan nexus. Thank you. Good evening, and Jai Hind to all of you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much,
all
Jai.
very much. Thank
Thank
you,
you, sir.
Jai Hind, and
Thanks
thank
a
you
lot.
to your
Thanks to
viewers
everybody.
for the patience.